folks, we're going to get started here. Non-Mendelian inheritance, part 2, polygenic inheritance, sex-linked traits, pleiotropy, environmental effects, epistasis, again, lesson 4.2, and these are different inheritance patterns that do not follow Mendel's genetics, right? Basically, the law that stated you had dominant and recessive traits that will determine a characteristic. This is traits that are going to behave a little differently. So the first one, polygenic inheritance, deals with many different genes that will help determine how a trait is going to be expressed. So if you think about it, there's going to be more than 3 different versions of it, 3 different genes, actual genes. And therefore, depending on how you inherit all of those, if you look at the figure, this has to deal with skin color. The more that you receive of certain types of alleles or genes, you're going to be lighter or darker skin. So if you think of the human population, lots of different skin colors. So occurs when multiple genes are involved in controlling the phenotype of a trait. Phenotype is an accumulation of contributions of multiple genes. These traits show continuous variations on lots of different skin colors in our human population. Or if you look at the human height, lots of different heights in the human population. Polygenic inheritance, the darkest pigment for skin occurs when all dominant alleles are inherited for these 3 genes. So if you look at the upper left-hand corner, if you want the lightest skin, then you would be receiving mostly recessive traits for all of these different genes. That's the bottom right-hand corner. Sex-linked traits are another form of non-Mendelian genetics. This has to deal with the X and the Y chromosome, mostly the X. There's a lot of genes on the X chromosome, not as many on the Y. And so when you inherit the sex chromosomes, you will determine what the trait's how it's going to be expressed. So for example, something like hemophilia, a blood disorder that's on the X chromosome, since males only have 1 X, whatever's on that X, that's what they get. Whereas with the female, she has 2 X's. That trait can be hidden by the other X, depending on how it's inherited. So females don't get to hemophilia as much. Another one is color blindness. You should be able to see some numbers or a pattern in those pictures on the right-hand side. Okay, and again, if the gene is on the X chromosome and males only get 1, whatever's on it, that's what they get. So they tend to be colorblind at a higher rate than females. So any type of sex-linked trait, males tend to get it more often than females because they don't have another X chromosome that potentially can hide the expression. So sex-linked trait, gene is on the X chromosome. Hybrid females are not colorblind. Females would need to receive a copy of the affected allele from each parent, right? Whereas the male only gets it on the X chromosome from the mom. Another one of those is, here's hemophilia, again, a blood disorder. You can see how males tend to inherit it. As with color blindness, any other X-linked trait, males tend to have more frequency. Look at the results to the right. How do females inherit the trait? Again, they have to get 1 copy of the gene from each parent on the X chromosome. Hemophilia is a disease where individuals have a difficult time clotting blood when they have a cut or bruise. Another type of trait and form of inheritance that it doesn't behave like Mendel's typical dominant recessive traits is something called pleiotropy. Refers to an allele which has more than 1 effect on the phenotype. Multiple symptoms can be traced back to 1 defective allele or form of the trait. So cystic fibrosis, you have red blood cells that are round, all right, and those tend to flow through your blood vessels a lot easier than these ones that are sickle cells. And you look at the picture on the right, and those that are sickle cell tend to clump up and cause some issues that are very painful. So cystic fibrosis or sickle cell anemia are examples, all right? Multiple symptoms can be traced back to 1 defective allele. So cystic fibrosis is like a respiratory-ish type and digestive disease that forms under this pleiotropy form of inheritance. Cystic fibrosis syndrome means it has many different symptoms. So again, it affects your respiratory system, digestive system, all those kinds of things. It's an autosomal recessive trait, so it's in a body chromosome 1 through 22, not 23, and 1 in 7,000 Americans inherit this. 1 in 32,000 Asian Americans living with CF. If you want to look at what that's like, you can click on the link. So you have respiratory systems, persistent cough that produces thick mucus, wheezing, breathlessness, decreased ability to exercise, repeated lung infections, inflamed nasal passages, or stuffy nose. And there's digestive symptoms: foul smelling, greasy stools, poor weight gain, growth, intestinal blockage, and severe constipation. Survival rates increased dramatically due to improvements in technology. 1960s, CF patients didn't live very long, and now they're living almost a normal life. Non-Mendelian inheritance environmental effects. So if you look at the pictures, a great way to take a look at how the environment can impact how an allele is expressed. So the Arctic fox in the wintertime versus the summertime, based upon temperature, their coat is going to change, and you can see why that would be an advantage to them, because they tend to blend into their environments. So that's an important one for the Arctic fox, right? And then the Siamese cat, dark fur in areas where body temperature is cooler. And so that's how Siamese cats get their different looks. And then here's some other environmental effects. Phenotype can be controlled by environmental conditions and genetics combined. The hydrangea flower color is impacted by how acidic or basic the soil is, or how much aluminum is in the soil. And you can see all the different variations there. So if you want a certain type of colored flower, you can adjust your pH of your soil or the amount of aluminum. And that is now going to bring us to epistasis. Epistasis means a situation where one gene pair affects the expression of the second gene pair. So a dominant allele of one gene pair hides the expression of an allele of a different gene pair. So the A's have the ability to hide the B's, in this case, with the color of the corn. Okay, so anthracene, or the purple pigment in corn, animal coat colors, depending on how you inherit it, will determine your phenotype. That's epistasis, one gene impacting another gene pair. In human, baldness impacts hair color. It becomes dominant to hair color. Other epistatic human traits include height and pigmentation. The gene for total baldness is epistatic to those for blonde hair or red hair. The baldness phenotype supersedes genes for hair color, and so the effects are non-additive. And that's it.